The iPhone 5S brought a lot to the table back in 2013. The first 64-bit chipset in a smartphone, Touch ID, the new design of iOS 7, and most importantly, a brand new gold color. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're taking a look at the iPhone 5S. How does it hold up in 2020? The iPhone 5S is the most supported iPhone of all time. It went from iOS 7 to iOS 12, or in other words, late 2013 to late 2019. That's 6 years of software support, which as far as I know is completely unmatched by any smartphone, at least officially. The 5S was launched alongside the iPhone 5C, which ironically was one of the least supported iPhones, from iOS 7 to iOS 10. It's kind of crazy the amount of differences between the two phones, even though they were released at the same time. The 5S was an innovative, solid upgrade to the 5, while the 5C was the 5, but in a plastic shell for not a whole lot less money than the 5S. But I'm not here to compare those two phones today. Instead, we're going to take a look specifically at the 5S and how it holds up in today's world. Obviously, iOS 13 would have been nice, but right now on iOS 12, the 5S can download basically any app and do most things. I think battery life is definitely going to be the roughest aspect for most people still using a 5S, and while you could get the battery replaced, if you have a 5S right now and you have a rough battery, you might as well just get a new phone. If you are interested in what iPhone you should get next, I'll link my iPhone buying guide in the description below. If you're looking to get a cheap phone on a budget, the 5S is definitely not the one to get. I would take a look at the iPhone SE or the 6S. The SE can be found for like 60 bucks-ish on eBay.com and the 6S around 100, and if you have a little bit more money, the iPhone 7 is like 150 bucks. All three of those phones are going to be much better for you than the 5S will be, and for not that much more money. But let's take a look at the design of the iPhone 5S, as it's one of its most appealing qualities. We have an aluminum body with glass antenna bands going across the back. This is one of my favorite iPhone designs. It just looks super classy in my eyes. There are 3 color options: space gray, silver, and gold. This was the first time gold had been a thing for iPhones, so yay. Actually, the gold color is a little bit more innovative, kind of, than you might assume. You might be like, what do you mean, it's just a color? Well, yes, but before this, iPhones had only come in white or black, so this was kind of something new for Apple, and it also showed the transition from the Steve Jobs era into the Tim Cook one. Of course, what showed that transition more was iOS 7, but hey, the gold color helped. This is a small phone with a 4-inch Retina display. The screen itself looks good, but it definitely feels small compared to my iPhone 11 Pro Max. There are no current iPhones with this form factor, but the SE is exactly the same and is significantly better if you absolutely need a phone this size. Below that display, we have a home button with Touch ID, which is slowish, but pretty darn good for 2013, and much better than putting in a passcode every single time. I love the boxy design. I miss when you could stand up an iPhone by itself on your desk. There have actually been rumors that this year's main iPhone might have a similar boxy design, although obviously bigger, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. This, believe it or not, is the lightest iPhone ever, and that mixed with the small size makes it extremely comfortable and ergonomic to hold. If you stick a thick case on here, it'll be a bit of a brick, but as is, it's pretty great. In my experience, it also tends to be pretty darn durable as well, so using it without a case should be okay as long as, you don't drop it. Let's take a look at the cameras. We have an 8 megapixel rear sensor on the back that can take pretty mediocre photos. It's important to keep in mind this phone is approaching 7 years old, so of course the photos aren't going to be spectacular, but it does a pretty good job all things considered. In the right conditions and with outdoor lighting, I'd say you can get some nice shots. The 5S can film in 1080p at up to 30 frames per second, which isn't great, but I mean, it's fine. It'll record things. About all you should need from a phone like this. The selfie camera is absolute hot garbage with 1.2 megapixels. This is not an okay selfie. Even for 2013, this was pretty weak, and it's definitely the aspect of this phone that's held up the worst in my eyes. But let's turn to the tech specs, something very interesting if you're a nerd like me. The 5S has Apple's A7 chipset and 1 GB of RAM. This was the first 64-bit architecture smartphone, and it set it up amazingly for the future. It's the reason it got all the way until iOS 12, whereas the 5C and 5 only got till iOS 10. The 5S actually doesn't feel that slow on its latest version. It's not fast, but it's 100% usable and can do most things. Yeah, it doesn't have dark mode as is because no iOS 13, but you could just jailbreak it. And right now, we can pretty much download anything off the App Store. This won't always be the case, but I'd give it another couple years before that fully changes, as right now iOS 11 is the average minimum required version of iOS for most apps. Battery life is probably the worst aspect of the iPhone 5S for obvious reasons. It was never a amazing even when it came out, and now we're like 6.5 years down the road, so most of them are probably struggling. It was a small battery to begin with, and if it's degraded in the battery health down to around 80% or lower, you're going to have issues, either slowdowns or unexpected shutdowns. If you're at this point and own a 5S, you can get Apple to replace your battery for about $50, but personally, I just get a new phone at this point. Overall, the iPhone 5S is quite possibly the best iPhone ever made. Why? Because it had innovation, long-lasting support, and never felt obsolete, at least yet. Sure, the design was the same as the iPhone 5 for the most part, but it had a gold color. Touch ID? Well, a lot of phones these days still have fingerprint sensors. iPhones don't, but a lot of Androids do, and even under the display, and the 5S was the best implementation for the time. Also, iOS 7 kind of changed like every single aspect of the iOS experience. In hindsight, I think a lot of us missed the aesthetic and smoothness of iOS 6, but iOS 7 was the fastest adopted iOS version ever for a reason. People wanted change, and iOS 7 was just that. In 2020, this phone is completely usable and it does the job, for the most part. It might not be on the latest version of iOS, but considering how old it is, it's pretty unprecedented how useful this phone remains. My grandfather, for example, right now is still using his iPhone 5S, and you know what? It's doing great for him. It takes photos, it takes calls, he can text with it, and that's about all he needs. Good luck finding an Android phone from 2013 that is even half as functional still as the 5S. But with that, I think I'm pretty much done here. Did you ever have an iPhone 5S? Do you still have a 5S? How's that going for you? Let me know in the comments down below. If you found this video interesting, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_tech if you'd like to for some reason, and there is a Discord channel you should go join, link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.